Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Like and subscribe, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, leave that donation for that fried rice and chicken wings. Look, man, Devin Haney and Brian Norman Jr., it's actually on, right? We already talked about that, but I'm going to tell you, I'm shocked that Devin Haney took that fight, man. Man, what the hell happened to my eye, boy? In this season, a bunch of meat, I'm about to go barbecue. I don't know what the hell went on here. Anyway, could have the goddamn virus. Anyway, man, what would make Devin take that fight? Now, I sat here and tried to kind of do a little bit of a fight breakdown with Brian Norman Jr. and Devin Haney, and really be fair to Devin Haney with the experience he's bringing into the ring. Because, of course, you want to say Devin, I think most of us want to say that Devin doesn't stand a chance because he's going up against Brian Norman Jr. And the way Brian Norman Jr. has, ran through his last three opponents, his opponents weren't tomato cans. But one thing that's important to remember, I always hear people say, at PBC, they make in-house fights. They're good for that. With Top Rank, they're good at matchmaking. Talking about Berlanga, talked about Shakir, talked about Floyd De La Hoya when they were there, talked about Terrence Crawford, and you talk about Jared Anderson, and then we come to Brian Norman Jr. And some people are bringing up saying, hey, look, let's not get too carried away and take it to the stupid, thinking that Brian Norman Jr. is more special than he really is, that will convince you to believe that he will beat Devin Haney. And I'm just going to tell you, man, y'all may be right about Brian Norman Jr., Top Rank matchmaking. You may be right about that. But don't act like the left hook of Brian Norman Jr., the jab, the right hand, isn't something special. And let's not act like Brian Norman Jr. isn't the naturally bigger man when compared to Devin Haney, that he's not a natural welterweight, and that him and Devin Haney is a very high-risk fight for Devin. Now, don't get me wrong, greater the risk, greater the reward. But I just don't think Devin Haney should be getting in here at this point in time, although it's for a belt, third division, against a guy with a hook like what Brian Norman Jr. has. I couldn't help but think to myself, I know Ryan Garcia, look, I know Ryan cheated, right? But there was still some strategy there from Ryan. There was still a game plan. And there was still the confidence. And you know what? I may get behind in points, but if I could land my left hook on Devin, it's lights out. And Ryan, when he was letting the left hand go, he was consistently landing it and doing damage. I'm going to be honest with you, and this is just my opinion. You may agree, you may not agree. I think Brian Norman Jr. has the kind of power if he lands on Devin. And remember, I don't think Devin's the same fighter. I think Ryan took a pound of flesh out of Devin. I think Devin, as far as his confidence, I think his self-belief is there, but I think there's a little bit of his confidence that has been snatched away by the Ryan fight. And him going into a fight with a guy like Brian Norman Jr., you just can't make me believe that Devin Haney is going to be okay with trying to trade with Brian Norman Jr. And you can't make me believe at some point in time Brian Norman Jr. isn't going to land that big left hook. And I think it carries more power than Ryan Garcia's. Anyway, when you take a look at this, and Brian Norman Jr. and Devin Haney, when you look at speed, right? Who has the faster hands? Now, Brian Norman Jr., he has really fast burst, really strong acceleration. And the thing about him is, I don't know if he's naturally right-handed or left-handed because he hits hard with both hands, but there's something special about that left hand of Brian Norman Jr. We saw him in his fight before with the Puerto Rican fighter. I forgot the guy's name, Mendez or whatever his name was. But the guy before Sasaki hit him with a jab, was like, with a jab and knocked him out. And that was a left hand. And with Sasaki was a left hook. So again, I don't know if he's naturally left-handed but converted to box orthodox. I don't know, because we have seen him drop that big right hand and do some serious damage against fighters, especially in that fight with Santillan. It was the left and right hand doing damage. Now, when you look at Devin Haney, he has fast hands. Maybe if we're grading them by stars, I give Brian Norman Jr. 4 stars for speed. I give Devin Haney maybe 4.5. His combos are really sharp when he lets his hands go. His hand speed is on point. And as far as the reach, I don't think there's too much. Let me see something if I could. Let me go back here and let me see if I can pull that up real quick. Reach, Haney versus Norman. I'm just trying to see what's the reach with the two of them. Okay, what is it? Let me see. Because I'm curious. I want to see, because that makes a big deal. Okay. Oh shit. All right. So let's just go back. Well, there we go. We got a problem now. So let me go back over here. So now we got a problem. So when it comes to reach, Devin Haney's got a little bit more speed. Brian Norman Jr. has a 72-inch reach. Devin Haney 71. Brian Norman Jr. has a reach advantage. Let me just tell y'all something. This shit is all bad for Devin Haney. All bad. He doesn't have the reach advantage. He doesn't have the size advantage. Speed advantage, not really. This is just all bad for Devin Haney. Now, when it comes to defense, this is where Devin Haney probably makes up a little bit of ground. For Brian Norman Jr., out of a scale of 5 stars, give him 3 stars. He has a real solid guard. He does get hit a lot. That's one thing I got to be honest with you. I do see him watching the punches, getting a hit, and still keeping his eye on the target, but he does get hit. But the thing is, he reacts very well. He'll use lateral movement. He'll slip. He'll eventually get his hands up, and he'll react well to get out of danger to avoid taking any more of those shots. Very rarely will you see him get hit with consecutive punches, but he is hittable. But Devin Haney, man, look, he's got an elite defensive radar. It's damn near impossible to catch up to Devin, especially when he's in a rhythm and he's firing on all cylinders, man, with the sharp combos and the great hand speed. Devin Haney can be very elusive. So when you look at it as far as defense, I think Devin Haney has a much better defense. I think he'll be able to land his jab, but I don't think he'll be able to just come outwork and make a guy like Brian Norman Jr. look like Regis Prograis. And to be honest with you, I think that's a horrible comparison for people to say Devin Haney is basically fighting a larger version of Regis Prograis. Regis Prograis was much smaller. Devin had a 4 or 5 inch reach advantage. And Regis Prograis had looked horrible in his previous fight against Zorrilla. So hold your horses and let's not take it to the stupid. Now, that being said, I'm not at all trying to disrespect Regis, but that Regis wasn't the same Regis that fought Josh Taylor. And I do believe that Regis could have got with Devin Haney. But anyway, it didn't happen, so it is what it is. Now we're talking about ring IQ. Brian Norman Jr. had gone down and had looked a little bit like we didn't know what direction he was going in his career. Top Rank was talking about dropping him. But since hooking up and fighting Santillan and doing Santillan the way he did, damn near killed the man, then going on to fight the Puerto Rican and coming and fighting Sasaki, Brian Norman Jr., as far as ring IQ, has been developing very, very well. Matter of fact, I've seen exponential IQ growth in Brian Norman Jr. And it's hard for me to sit here and say that his IQ is better than Devin's, but I'll tell you what, he's fast approaching the same way Devin Haney is postured in regards to his IQ. Now, with Devin Haney, we all know his dad has a plan, has a strategy, and at the end of the day, what Bill says, go. Shane Mosley worked with them for the Ramirez fight, and there were things Shane wanted and Devin's dad didn't, and Devin followed his father's game plan. But the bottom line is high-level strategies being formulated in the Devin Haney camp, and you would think they would have another high-level strategy with Brian Newman Jr. I do not think they're going to try to stand and trade with Brian Newman Jr. I think Devin Haney will get knocked out cold. But the bottom line is they may put together a kind of strategy, since Devin has fancy feet, where Devin can get in there and box and move, and it could force Brian Newman Jr. to chase him around, and in doing so, he can run into some shots. So it's going to be interesting to see how what Bill conjures up for Devin Haney to give him the best chance to clip the welterweight champion. And I just think, for everybody thinking Devin Haney's going to be able to get in there because of his ring IQ and experience and dominate Brian Newman Jr., listen, Devin is fighting a full-fledged goddamn welterweight. Devin's been hurt at the lighter weights. He hasn't looked that good in his last two fights. And to think he's going to come down, put forth some Herculean effort and clip Brian Newman Jr., I just think that's asking a lot. As far as power, look, there's no argument there. I mean, Brian Newman Jr., I would say he's a 5 out of 5, but some would say 4.5 out of 5 because there's still more to see. The man got 22 KOs in 28 fights, so there's something there. Bottom line is this is the number one reason why I'm concerned for Devin Haney getting in this goddamn ring with Brian Newman Jr. I just don't see him getting in there and trying to hold his ground and stand in front of him and look for the exchanges. I think he's going to be reactionary and trying to counter, slip, move, look for opportunities, maybe time him. But he's nowhere in the world he's going to get on the front foot and try to walk him down. Remember, Devin doesn't have the size advantage or reach advantage, and he doesn't have that much of a speed advantage. So again, all bad if he goes chasing the hard-hitting Brian Newman Jr. But Devin does have crisp shots, but he's not really a finisher. He's a finish line crosser, but he's not a guy who's trying to get you out of there with the Henderson, Nevada, bing bings. Now, when it comes to footwork, look, Brian Newman Jr. has good footwork. You know, like it says here in the chart, strong base. He's very offensive-minded, very aggressive. But there's a lot of intelligence behind what he does. With Devin, you know, he has really good footwork, light on his feet, great control, can punch while he's moving, can just pivot and use angles on a dime, and everything Devin Haney does has been instinctive. With him against Brian Newman Jr., I would have to say I expect Devin to show that more than against Ramirez, because Ramirez was a must-win fight to get to Ryan, not because Ramirez was a threat, so Devin chose to box and move against Brian Newman Jr. Devin, this is a must-survive fight, because if he stands there too long, he's going to get clipped and violently knocked out. I don't want that for Devin, because I really respect the fact that this young man will fight anybody. Like, he really will fight anybody. Devin Haney coming like Amir Khan. I should save that for another video. The guy's just too much heart, not enough chin. But we'll see, man. Great control, light in his feet. As far as footwork, I get an edge to Devin, but again, he gonna need that footwork when he get in the ring with Brian Newman Jr. As far as the chin, I mean, I don't know, man. I think the verdict's still out on Brian Newman Jr., but one thing for sure is, you know, Devin is not gonna put a dent in his chin. Now, when it comes to Devin, this chart will tell you that Devin's chin is proven versus elite punchers. Look, you gotta knock Devin out. If you hit Devin and hurt him, he goes down. He's gonna get up and fight. Like Devin's not a snow cone. You know, he's gonna get up and he's gonna fight you. But I just don't think he can stand up to that damn 147-pound Brian Newman Jr. But we'll find out. And with experience, you know, Devin has all the experience in the world, although at a lower weight. But he has the experience, more experience than Norman Jr. But again, Norman Jr., man, he's coming out the beltway strong, man. He's a new champion. I think he's kind of getting beyond the learning curve. And the fight with Devin Haney, I think the first few rounds could be a bit confusing to Brian Norman Jr., but I think he makes the adjustment, sorts it out, and that power is going to come into play, and then it's going to be basically Tom and Jerry. It's going to be target practice or Tom and Jerry. Either way it goes, I think Devin loses. Now, what's the X factor? Okay, if we're looking at all these things we just talked about, speed, defense, ring IQ, power, footwork, and the chin, and experience, well, what could possibly be the X factor to make a difference in the fight? I think with Brian Norman Jr. is just like what we saw in his last 3 fights. It's just out of nowhere, this man explodes and knocks fighters out. Or you see when he starts touching them, even in the first round, the momentum changes. He starts to change the direction of the fight, and his fighters all of a sudden go from being aggressive and offensive-minded to being more defensive-minded and reactionary. So that's the X factor to me. It just boils down to the explosiveness and the power of Brian Norman Jr. Now with Devin, something that could really help him is when he's in there and shit gets thick. He always seems to keep his cool, keep his composure, try to adapt, knows when to tie up, makes the right reads, and can, like I said, he's not a finisher in a fight, a guy who's going to knock somebody out. But Devin knows how to keep his composure, adapt, and get to the finish line. So that being said, when you really take a look at it, if you ask me who wins, I think Brian Norman Jr. I just think speed kills, but Brian has speed, but so does Devin. And for Devin, I don't think the coochie cooing, the tickling contest shit is going to fly. I think the power is going to make a big difference. I think the size, I think the reach, I think the footwork, but really the power. I just think Devin going to have a tough time. But, hey, if he beats him, like I said, Devin deserves all the credit in the world for taking this fight right now. But if he beats Brian Norman Jr., I think everybody should bow down to that dude because they ain't doing it like Devin. That's one thing I'll say. These fighters, Devin Haney is today's Amir Khan. And I don't mean that in an insultive fashion. I mean that as a compliment. Amir Khan, no matter what people say, everybody says that man would fight anybody. And Devin Haney is getting to that point to where we're saying the same thing. Hey, all those guys out there, and could have tried to go pick up a belt that boots drop. There's so many things these guys can do. And Devin's the one that's saying, you know what, I wanted T.O. De La Hoya's blocking the Ryan fight. Okay, Brian Norman Jr. That's crazy to me. But hey, you know what? Devin Haney and his dad and the team are confident in Devin and his ability. So let's see how it plays out. But I do think that I want to make sure I say this, and I'm saying this emphatically. Brian Norman Jr. is not Regis Prograis. Fucking 22 years old, Regis Prograis is past his mid-30s. Regis Prograis have been in tough fights that look bad. Brian Norman Jr. is getting better and better, and the momentum continues to grow. It just has all bad on it. I'm not even going to say an upset. It's not an upset. It just has all bad written on it. And for those of you saying, oh, man, you're not giving Devin a chance, and he's just moving up to 147, just a few pounds from where he fought last time at a catch weight and the time before that at 140. But you're saying Crawford going to go and beat Canelo. Hold your horses, McNicholas. I'm telling you, I think Canelo should be the favorite. But I think Crawford has a chance to win. But also, again, we got to look at Devin in his last couple fights, the punch that gave him the most problem, and how he looked. He has not looked good. Okay? What's his name? Brian Norman Jr. is looking better and better. Terrence Crawford looked good against Spence. He looked good against Majumov, in my opinion. Canelo looked okay in his last 3 fights. I'm not saying he looked great. He didn't look horrible, but he just looked okay. That's why I think, you got to be careful just having these knee-jerk reactions and putting emotional comments out there. Stop and listen to what's being spoken and understand that, we're not delusional over here. But there's no comparison to Devin Haney bubbling up in weight and why he should have a chance and Terrence Crawford. It's just, we could have that conversation for a week straight and probably never agree. Anyway, y'all keep cool. Shout out to the veterans, all 7 continents. Yo, man, gotta give a shout out to Devin Haney. Can't believe this man taking this fight. But we'll see what happens because the best fighter doesn't win. It's a fighter who boxes the best. And Devin has shown time and time again that he can outbox anybody. I guess the question is, can he do it against Brian Norman Jr.? We'll find out. Keep cool. I'm in the breeze.